Good morning, people. Welcome to Memorial Day weekend. And it rained. That just makes me chuckle. It's a terrible thing. Let's see. Hold on. Talk among yourselves for a second. I've got to get logged in. It is nice weather. Good thing. All right, come on here. Oh, I didn't put the caps lock on. That's why. Okay, here we go. There we are. Now we can start. So, good morning. My day off during the week is always on Mondays. And because it is, whenever there is a holiday on Monday, it's a tension between whether I should take off Tuesday. And I almost never do. So when it rains on Monday and you all have your Memorial Day weekend just kind of ruined, I feel good. It's terrible, it's awful, but I do it. So good morning and welcome to a rainy Memorial Day weekend. Today we're going to do something we don't often do. We're going to talk about our community's finances. That won't happen until we get to the end. But if you've never seen us do this before, this will give you a good idea of how we approach money and talking about money as a community. It's an important part of community. You'll get to see how we do it. So I'm glad you're here. We're going to make a separate recording because I knew it was going to be a holiday weekend, and then we'll start distributing that recording to folks who aren't here today. So I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you logged in. If you're joining us online, a special welcome to newcomers. We would like to send you a hello email. If you'd like that, you can use the QR code, or you can go to our website /newcomer. After you read about the community, there'll be an invitation. If you would like, you could click it and meet some folks in the community. Also, we say this each week, in healthy community, we stand with one another on our rough days. But for that to happen, we actually have to make an intentional decision for it to happen. Otherwise, cultural resistance, in particular the American ethic of going it alone, it'll never happen. Also, turns out we've got some people in the community with an aptitude for standing with us on our rough days, often because they have been stood with during their rough days. So, 3 ways you can participate, the QR code, our website /soul, or you can just find somebody in the back. They make it really easy. They got name tags on. So let's say, as we do each week, if you are here, you belong. If you are here, you belong. Well done. Let's say together, as we do, we are, every one of us, carriers of the inner light. We are, every one of us, carriers of the inner light. And we are, every one of us, carriers of divine breath. We are, every one of us, carriers of divine breath. Sorry, I went a little fast on that.
Ready, tap. Wonderful. You guys are going to tap when we're going to count to 8, and on 8, you're going to tap them. Ready? 1, 2, here
3.
we go. 1, whoop. Tap on 8. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Makes you nostalgic. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, big one here. 5, 6, 7.
Ooh,
love it, love it, love
good.
it. All right, my drum friends. 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 1 and 2, 3 and play. 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 1 and 2. That is it. Excellent. Xylophones are all practiced up. We are ready to roll.
Uh-oh, hold on.
Okay, that was either a flash of lightning or I didn't think it was that bad outside. All right. We're going to roll through one time, and then we're going to start our singing. Here we go. Finger cymbals on 8, drums 1 and 2, 3 and 4, xylophones. Here we go. 1, 2, oh 1, 2, here we go. 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we sing. Love, 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 love. The message in our word is love. Love your neighbor as your brother. Love, love, love. 6, 7. Love, joy, 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 joy. The message in our word is joy. Joy that fills to overflowing. Joy, joy, joy. And peace, 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 peace. The message in our word is peace. Peace that passes understanding. Peace, peace, peace. And love, 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 love. The message in our word is love. Love your neighbor as your brother. Love, love, love. Love, love, love. Love, love, love.
Well
Yeah.
done, guys. Well
Nice.
done.
Very nice. I am just noticing something important. That might be better. We started learning a new song last week called Everything is Sacred. We're going to continue that today. I'm going to give you a quick refresher, and then we're going to launch into it. For this song, the only instruments that we need are shakers. So you guys have shakers, and if anyone else has a shaker, we're going to save the shakers. I'm going to tell you when. Actually, I spoke too soon. If we could set our shakers down, and I'm going to let you know when to pick them up. But you're going to shake them just like before. Can I hear that real quick right now? 1 and 2, and here we go. Stereophonic. That's what that is. That's the word. It's like surround sound. I love it. All right, excellent. There's no drums on this, just shakers. So shakers, when I give you the cue, you can start shaking. Xylophones are ready to go. So, singing. So this has a little bit of call and response to it. I'll sing, and then you'll answer. I'm going to teach you your answering part first. It goes like this. Everything is sacred. Would you sing that with me? 1, 2, ready, go. Everything is sacred. Let's do that one more time. 1, 2, ready, go. Everything is sacred. I'm going to sing Everything is Sacred. My last note goes up. Your last note goes down like you just did, like this. Everything is sacred. Everything is sacred. Perfect. Then I'm going to sing a line. Everything is filled with the divine. And then you're going to sing, everything is alive. Would you sing that with me, please? 1, 2, here we go. Everything is alive. And then we sing, with spirit. Sing, with spirit. And then, with spirit. With spirit. Now, those long notes are always 3 counts long. So let me show you how that works. Everything is alive, 2, 3, with spirit, 2, 3, with spirit, 2, 3. Would you sing that with me, please? 1, 2, here we go, and everything is alive, 2, 3, with spirit, 2, 3, with spirit. Excellent. Let's try that with the guitar. Everything is alive with spirit, with spirit. And that's the song. Let me give you the line before that. I'll sing everything is filled with the divine. Everything is filled with the divine. Go! Everything is alive with spirit, with spirit. And then we're on to the next verse. All right, I think we're ready. Here we go, from the beginning. We're going to sing it, just so the shakers know, we're going to sing it all the way through. I'm going to get to a part where we're not singing. And then when we come back to the beginning, I'm going to give the shakers a chance to join in. So shakers, I will tell you, pick up your shakers and join in. And that's when you know it's time to touch your shaker. But of course, never before that. You wouldn't think of it. Here we go. Everything is sacred, everything is sacred, everything is filled with the divine. Everything is alive with spirit, with spirit. Everything is a wonder, everything is a wonder, unfolding right before our eyes. Everything is alive with spirit, with spirit. Everything is a blessing, everything is a blessing, bursting from the earth and sky. Everything is alive with spirit, with spirit. Everyone is sacred.
Everyone is sacred.
Everyone is filled with the divine. Everyone is alive with spirit, with spirit. It's your time, yeah. There we go. Perfect. That's what we were missing. Here we go. Everything is sacred. Everything is sacred. Everything is filled with the divine. Everything is alive with spirit, with spirit. Everything is a wonder, everything is a wonder, unfolding right before our eyes. Everything is alive with spirit, with spirit. Everything is a blessing,
Everything is a blessing,
bursting from the earth and sky. Everything is alive with spirit, with spirit. Everyone is sacred.
Everyone is sacred.
Everyone is filled with the divine. Everyone is alive with spirit, with spirit. Everyone is sacred.
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 There it is.
Very good.
Lovely. All right, this last song, I think we have time for, has no instruments, just our voices. What? Why bother? All right. This is a song we haven't sung in a while, but it's pretty well known. So if it's new to you, listen first time and then join in on the other verses. Otherwise, please join me in Abide With Me. Abide with me, fast falls the eventide. The darkness deepens, Lord, with me abide. When other helpers fail and comforts flee, help of the helpless, oh, abide with me. Swift to its close, ebbs out life's little day. Earth's joys grow dim, its glories pass away. Change and decay all around I see. O thou who changest not, abide with me. I need thy presence every passing hour. What but thy grace can foil the tempter's power? Who like thyself my guide and stay can be? Through cloud and sunshine, oh, abide with me. Through cloud and sunshine, oh, abide with me. Thank you so much for singing this morning.
Well done. All right, let's stand up together. Children, line up. You are ready to be dismissed. The rest of us, let's turn one to another. Pass the peace of God, the blessing of the Lord, one to another. And as you're being seated, a few announcements. As you're being seated, a few announcements to make. As you're being seated, a few announcements to make. As you're being seated, a few announcements to make. As you're being seated, a few announcements to make. Heather is sick, and so today you get me. And here's what Heather would be saying. She would be saying that the announcements are really just the space and time and place where we practice working the circle together. The circle is a way of demonstrating the ancient practices that bring about transformation in change in people's lives. 4 categories of practice: communal, contemplative, learning, and serving. And if we undertake those, it brings about transformation in our lives. So when you see this come up, that is working the circle put onto a calendar. So you can see that today afterwards, there's a time to get together, practice communally. What are you thinking on Zoom? The kids are having a cleanup downstairs, which is both service and communal. That's going to happen right after church. Virtual book study. This is a great book. If you haven't read it, I would encourage you to do it. Nonviolent communication. We've got Bruku coming up. We've got one-week internal assembly, which I'll talk about in a minute, and a Braver Angels depolarizing workshop. So the kids area cleanup is going to happen right after church. So here's what you got to have: a body. So if you walk downstairs, there will be stuff to clean, squirt, clean, all the stuff that needs to be done. Help Shelby out. Let me talk about this one for a minute. The big picture is that a core bedrock in our faith tradition is this: we do not work on systems that cause harm to people. It's as core a commitment, as bedrock a commitment as our tradition has. It goes all the way back to our Jewish heritage, the term tikkun olam. We are to be repairers of a broken world. So the whole point of the spiritual life, the whole point of the spiritual journey, we become better people so that we can help create a better world. And One Wake is about the best way that we have found to change the systems that cause harm, that cause pain for people living in Wake County. It's the best way we have found to make real change in real people's lives in an ongoing way. So at our community, we do community service events. We do things where we show up for a day, and we do things to help out in the community, and hopefully we'll do even more of that. But we are also part of both One Wake and Braver Angels, because those work on the systems that make community service necessary in the first place. Now, our commitment to One Wake is not burdensome. But when a big meeting like this one comes up, that's coming up on the 8th, we need to throw our support behind the larger community, 50 congregations who will be gathering together on Thursday evening at 7 p.m., June 8th. And here's what's going to happen. Last Sunday, what we did after the lesson was we had a listening meeting. It's a thing that One Wake does, and asked just this question: what causes you pain living in Wake County? Then we came back with the second question: what causes pain for the people that you know living in Wake County? And then we wrote all that stuff down. We've submitted it to One Wake. Thing is, while we were doing that, 50 other congregations were doing the same thing. So on June 8th, we will get to hear what everybody had to say, and we will have a process by which we vote for our top 3. Our top 3 priorities that we, One Wake, will be working on over the next 3 years. We're going to choose 3 areas that are, first, doable, winnable opportunities, but second, that reflect the concerns of those listening meetings, where we listen to what is the pain that's being caused in Wake County. On that day, or you'll hear about it that day, we will also be forming working groups from the 50 congregations. You are welcome to represent Common Thread. I really hope we will. In whatever those three priorities are, there will be a working group for each of them. The meeting is going to happen at Baptist Grove Baptist Church, which is right up by where the old Ray Road building was that we used to meet in. So I do hope that you will attend. Come on out for that, and I'll see you there. Normally at this point, I would let you know what's new in the housekeeping form. There are some new things, but today for housekeeping, instead of doing that, I'm going to do something different. We're going to talk a little bit about our community's finances, and we're going to do that after the lesson. So before that, a couple of evolution memes. Charles Darwin, the first one is a quote, "It is not the strongest of the species survives, it's not the most intelligent, it is the most adaptable to change." And I saw that and I thought, oh, come on, people, let us be adaptable to change. So the other one, my smart-assed friend Tim Harrison sent me yesterday, along with a text that said, "Definitely for your next sermon." What I don't think he did was imagine that I would actually use it in my next sermon, and so here it is. Now, there is no good reason for either of those memes. They just made me happy. There are not many religious folks who still get offended talking about evolution, but when I was young, they really got offended by talking about evolution. And tweaking folks has kind of been a lifelong hobby of mine. So this is probably just habit. It's probably no longer relevant, but it did make me happy. Blame Tim. So the lesson that we've been working on is about letting go. The first part of the lesson was the why and what of letting go, getting to the deeper issues that we let go. The second part, the part we're in right now, is the how. What are the practical practices of letting go of very tangible things that if we will do, will make us able to let go of the deeper things? If we do let go of these tangible, practical things, will enable us to let go of the skewed beliefs version of self, or the limiting beliefs version of self, or the not true enough values version of self. If you missed part one, you can catch up online. We've also seen through the lesson, thank you, religion, for providing a history and a curriculum for us, because the skewed belief self, it goes so deeply inside of us that we really can't let go of it directly. So, a curriculum of incremental steps. Last week we saw we can't let go directly of our evolutionary negativity bias, but we can practice intentional gratitude. And if we will practice intentional gratitude, and if we will do it over time, the practice will actually begin to disrupt that baked-in instinctive bias that we carry in our brains, negativity bias. So today, same pattern, different bias. Let's talk today about the accumulate stuff brain bias, or the get stuff brain. We are all disposed to accumulate. We are all disposed to get stuff, and for good reason. It is programmed into our brains. It's the default setting. Getting stuff is what we do when we're not paying attention to what we're doing. It is the default. Back when our brains were being shaped by natural selection, resources were scarce. And because they were, people who could get stuff and then hold on to it once they got it, people who could get food and water and get stuff for making shelter and get tools for leveraging capacity and get materials for making fire, people who could get stuff and then hold on to it once they had it, they made it through the winter. And because they did, they survived, and they had babies, and they passed their get stuff disposition on to those babies and eventually passed it along to us. Also, people who could get stuff and then hold on to it, because they were more likely to make it through the winter, were attractive to more potential partners, giving them more opportunities to make babies and make babies with healthier, stronger, more robust partners. So, take that process, concentrate it for about a zillion generations, and accumulating stuff has become the default setting. We just do it. We don't have to try to do it. We have to try not to do it. Now, we don't use the word sin very often as a community. I haven't looked lately, but it's probably still somewhere on our website where we put it a long time ago, mostly to get a rise out of folks. Did I mention lifelong hobby? We say sin is not that big a deal because good Christian folks just go apeshit when you say that. We don't use that word very much because in church life it's kind of gotten corrupted. But don't be fooled, we talk about it all the time. I have been talking about it this morning when I talked about brain biases, when I talked about how we develop a brain that doesn't serve us well. It got corrupted, though, by being reduced to a you better feel bad about a bad thing you did kind of reduction. And that is just not that helpful, because as soon as you frame it that way, what usually comes next is some people start thinking to themselves that they are the good people, and then they get all looking down on-ish or all scoldy-ish toward the other people and come up with a message that says, you got to stop doing the bad things, you bad people. And again, it's just not that helpful. Much more helpful, I think, is to imagine that construct, that idea that we use the word sin for, as instincts that you and I carry within us that are not serving us all that well. And to recognize that we all have them, and that we never had the option to not have them. If you know what the Bible says, you know that I just quoted Paul. All have sinned and all have fallen short of the glory of God, which means really we didn't ever have a chance to not wake up inside the brains that we woke up inside of. And you and I woke up inside of accumulate stuff brain. And most often it just doesn't serve us all that well. It's not a big enough truth to build our lives on. But now again, it was not a bad thing that we accumulated stuff. It was not a bad thing, is not a bad thing that you and I wake up inside of get stuff brains. It's a good thing. It is a you and I wouldn't be here if it hadn't happened kind of good thing. But that same instinct that in one context would have kept us alive is what we say all the time, true, but not true enough. Good, but not good enough. Now, in many ways, get stuff brain derails the very lives we want to be living. Many of us have never watched Marie Kondo, but unless you live under a rock, you know the phrase, does it spark joy? We have all become very aware that too much stuff stresses us. Too many things on the calendar stress us. Too many things in the kitchen. Too many things in our heads. Too many things in our days diminishes the quality of our lives. The very evolutionary adaptation that made us stronger now makes us weaker. Now clutters our lives, clutters our days, too many things, too many appointments, too much stuff in our heads, too much stuff in our houses. Instead of us owning things, a flip has happened and things begin to own us. And we own us and make demands upon us. Maintenance demands, care demands, cleaning demands, repair demands. And things demand headspace. Where are you going to store those things? How are you going to manage those things? And things create decision fatigue. We go about accumulating things so we have options, so that we have choices. But then those very options, those very choices begin to wear us down and suck up bandwidth because we've got too many choices, and now we suffer decision fatigue because of the use of mental space. So, thank you, ancient tradition, a curriculum to help us get to the place we can let go. Small steps, incremental steps to help us get to the bigger stuff we need to let go of. This practical practice in contemporary language is called voluntary simplicity. You might have heard the term before, but it's really quite an ancient practice. And because it is ancient, we've had time to do what religion often does, which is mess it up. So many times the practice has grown corrupted, especially in the West, where we have taken on a toxic form of asceticism and given people the idea that stuff is bad, that possessions are bad, that wanting stuff is bad, that good people go without, don't want stuff. It's not about that. It's the same thing we saw last week. It's not about the thing. It's about what's happening inside of us. The practical practice is there to promote and build health, well-being, and peace within us. Now, this particular practice, it's a little bit different from the others. The others that we have mentioned, the others that show up in Working the Circle, all of those are often practiced as a daily rhythm or a weekly rhythm or a monthly rhythm. We do the thing, and then we show up tomorrow and do the thing again. Or show up next week or show up next month and do the thing again. But simplicity is more like a linear project than it is a recurring cycle. Let me explain what I mean. To practice simplicity, especially living in our culture, we have to first make a plan. Part of that plan is then we set a schedule for the plan. Then, bit by bit, over time, we begin to execute stages of the plan. I read this book, and it really helped me kind of understand that as the approach for this practice. It's called Seven, an Experimental Mutiny Against Excess. It helped me understand that simplicity is better approached as a project than a weekly practice. This woman, her name's Jen Hatmaker, she recruited her family for a 7-month project, and they made a plan. Step 1, identify 7 areas of too much. So they identified too much food, too much clothing, too much buying, too much media, too many possessions, too much waste, too much stress. Step 2 then was to make a 1-month plan to address each one of those 7 areas. So for 1 month, they practiced eating only 7 foods. Then he said, I did a little experiment, thought if we were only going to eat 7 foods, what would we choose? Another month, they only wore 7 articles of clothing. We also did that experiment. Turns out Denise would go with 2 pairs of underwear. I wouldn't. Another month, only spend money at 7 places. Another month, eliminate 7 media types. 1 month, give away 7 things a day and do it for 30 days. Now again, eating 8 foods instead of 7 is not more virtuous. It's not bad. That's not the point. It's not about the thing. It's about what letting go of the thing does inside of us. Voluntary simplicity is a practice of challenging brain instincts. So we make a plan. We make a plan to declutter our lives, to reduce the number of possessions that we are responsible to take care of. We reduce the number of commitments that we have. We reduce what we consume because it isn't on the it's on the fine print we hardly ever see. When we consume things, we don't realize that it comes with a whole bevy of unseen requirements, a whole bevy of unseen demands upon us that we usually don't factor in. But thank you again, religious curriculum, a practice, simplicity. Make a plan to give ourselves time, to reduce what we possess, to reduce what we consume, so that we spend mindfully, so that we put things on our calendars mindfully. Bit by bit, we simplify. Bit by bit, we reduce distractions, and bit by bit, we become more aware of the choices that we are making, and we make those choices more mindfully. This practice, simplicity, is in the curriculum to help us live more mindfully, more beautifully, more peacefully. Here's what I hope today's lesson does. I hope it gets us to start thinking about making a plan, maybe over the course of this coming summer. I hope this lesson sparks conversations that we have with one another or with friends and family, people that we love. What would it look like to make my life 5% simpler? What would it look like to make my life 10% simpler? How might I do that in a 1-month kind of way? How might I do that in a 7-month kind of way? How might I do that over the course of a year? Now here again, like I said last week, Google is our friend. There are no shortage of ideas on Google about how to make life simpler. Ideas and coming up with ideas, that is not the hard part of this equation. The hard part is deciding. The hard part is making a plan. The hard part is having enough conversations so that we actually make a good plan. The hard part is setting reminders in place so that we stick with the plan once it's made. That's the hard part. Denise kind of led our family into this practice early on in our lives, and then she kept track of the plan. When we would dig our heels in a little bit, she would often do it on her own without us involved. But the plan was go through one room once a month. Set the reminders, map out which room is going to happen, which month, and ask the question, what do we have that we do not have to have? What do we have that we do not have to be taking care of? Then, after we had done that, first year, she said, that was good, let's do it again. So we did it again for another year. Same rooms, same questions. We actually did that several times over several years. What do we have that we do not have to be taken care of? So, one morning a month, the plan was get emotionally up for the job. Because honestly, getting rid of stuff is an emotionally and mentally demanding process. So you've got to get yourself in the position, in the mindset. She calls it the brutal mindset. Let's get there so that we are up, we're emotionally ready for this thing, and now that we're up, let's do it. We go into the room and we try our best to be cutthroat. That was her word. Then, out of that, we would say, all right, there's a pile, and now it's in the garage. And then, one afternoon, later that month, now we've got to deal with the pile. Now, when we had time, we would carefully curate the pile and give it to people that we cared for. But we were raising kids. We never had time. So we took it over to the thrift store over on Six Forks, and we would drop it off on their loading dock. And the thing is, the process worked and did what the process is supposed to do. It did simplify our lives. And we did because Denise kept bringing us back to it and back to it and back to it. She took on the understanding that this is a project that we do again, and then we do again, and then we do again and again. And simplicity is like that. And sure enough, over time, less stuff, less stress, more peace. But more importantly, the practice changed us. It made us more aware of what stuff does to us. It made us less attached to stuff, more willing to live in a different way, less hijacked by those brain instincts, which again, that's what the letting go curriculum is all about. So, indwelling divine, may we be, a year from now, living simpler lives, less hijacked by instincts, more at peace. Amen. Now, normally what we would do right now is open the floor, and it actually feels a little weird to not be doing that. But instead today, an extended version of housekeeping. Let's talk about our community's money. We are 6 months now moved in. There are a few small projects that remain, but they are not expensive, so we can actually begin to think about where we are financially. I did a lot of work this week that I am not good at. It was a math week. And so I was trying to wrestle numbers into a story that I could understand, and a story that I could explain to you. So here's the story. We have $41,000 less than we had on October 30th, 2022, the day before we started moving in process. Now, of that $41,000, $25,000 went to moving expenses, which was $10,000 more than we thought we were going to spend. We thought we could just unplug all of the equipment that we had in the old room, plug it back in when we got here, but because of the shape of the room and the way the stage goes, and especially because of the outdated electrical in the room, we couldn't just do that. Someday, I hope we can buy some equipment for the live stream, because Sundays do not translate online. We know that this is true, do not translate online as well as they did before the move. But that's another day, and you all who do tune in online, we're actually going to ask you for the money. We're going to try and raise that money from you. So $25,000 of the $41,000 that we are behind is due to what it cost for us to move in. The other $16,000 is from below projected giving over the last 6 months. Now, during that same period of time, people did give $11,000 to the Sarah Youth Fund. So our total wasn't actually off by that much, but that money can only be used for the purposes for which it was giving. That didn't go into our regular budget. So $41,000 behind where we were October 30th. $25,000 of that is moving expenses, $16,000 of that lower than projected giving. Here's some good news. We don't have to worry about that first number. We don't even have to think about the $25,000. Years ago, when Scott became our treasurer, he brought a lot of experience to the endeavor. He had been on the boards of many, and he had been the treasurer of many nonprofits before he got here. And so as soon as he got here, one of the first things that he did was insist that our board create an emergency fund. And he made sure that we knew how to do it and how it ought to go, so that there was enough in it and there was not too much in it. Not too much, he insisted, because a nonprofit exists for the purpose of their mission, and the mission is not to be sitting on cash. But enough because he had seen too many nonprofits fail in their mission because they didn't set aside sufficient emergency reserves. So he gave us a rule of thumb, and we've been following that rule of thumb kind of without thinking about it. We just put it in place, and then we just kept doing it every month. Rule of thumb is, first, keep the equivalent of 1 month's expenses in the operating account. Rule number 2 is keep 3 to 6 months' expenses in a savings account. And given our community's financial stability over the long time that we have been together, he fudged us closer to the 3 than to the 6. So here's why that matters now. In the year before we moved, we were focused on finding a new home. So focused that we didn't do a lot of the things that we would normally do during the course of the year. And because we didn't, our expenses were lower than budget for about a year. And our giving was a little bit elevated because we were giving extra toward the not knowing when or where we're going to go or how much it's going to cost. We were giving a little bit more toward the move when it would come inevitably. So by the time we got to October 30th, we had accumulated more savings than our rule of thumb. Interestingly, about $25,000 more. And now we have moved. And now we have spent the money that it took to move, and now we are right at our rule of thumb emergency fund. The move is done and dusted. You gotta love financial planners. I think God does. I think God loves financial planners better than the rest of us. But the $16,000, however, we need to think about that together. It turns out if you took that out over the 6 months, that's about 10% lower than our budgeted giving, our projected giving. Math. I did some math this week. Now, of that $16,000, about half of it was due to longtime donors who moved away. Now, many of them had started moving away at the very beginning of the pandemic, and so they had 3 years to move away. But during the pandemic, they kept on giving, partly because we were all online, but partly because they were helping us get through a crisis. I was talking to Trey about our numbers, and he was telling me about a recent survey that he'd read, and it turns out that for churches our size, we beat the curve. The average has been a 15% decline, so a lot of churches that folded during the pandemic, we did not face that kind of trouble. So half of it, longtime donors who moved away. The other half of below budgeted giving or below projected giving was a combination of factors. The first of that combination is some people did not come back from the pandemic, or they did not make the move to this side of town when we moved. We monitor our directory pretty closely. You're going to start having people ask you if you're not in the directory, please get in the directory, because that's how we wonder after you. We wonder how you're doing by looking through the directory. I do that. I look through it all the time. And here's something looking through the directory that I noticed about those who did not come back. Disproportionately, those who did not come back from the pandemic were lifetime churchgoers. People who had been in church all of their lives. Now, again, I do not know what that means, but it did make me laugh a little bit. It happened. It's also true that people show up fewer Sundays per month than they did pre-pandemic. I think 2 years of church on the couch changed our sensibilities. The actual number of not come-backers is not that high, but they were consistent donors. Maybe that's what Lifetime Church does for you, but anyway, they were. And so now here we are, 10% below our budget projections. So what are we going to do? In the past, here's what we've always done. We've just lowered our expenses. We do not dun people for money. It is not our way. But here's the thing about that strategy at this particular time in our community's life. We have two kinds of expenses, fixed expenses and discretionary. The fixed are like rent and insurance. Our fixed web expenses have gone way up since the pandemic. We spend on computers and we spend on apps and programs. We spend regularly helping people who are facing financial trouble. We pay our one-week dues. We buy books. We buy supplies. We buy food. We buy microphones when they break. We buy equipment when it stops working. There's not much wiggle room in our fixed expense category. Our variable expenses is primarily people's time. Here's the thing. We have always been frugal. The dollars that you give, the dollars that I give, they are a solemn trust, and we work very hard to not waste them. Now that our buffer is gone, if we keep coming in below projected giving, we're going to do what we always do. We're going to cut expenses. What that will mean is saying no to some things that we have said yes to, and in our case, that's going to be people's time. We are, at heart, a volunteer organization. Communal organizations, like churches, have always been. If we did not have strong volunteers, we would not exist. People often think when they come to our church that there is a they that runs Common Thread. But there is no they. There is only us. We make community happen. Now, I think that people think that there is a they because we have great volunteers. We have a lot of people who love and serve our community. But even with our gifted volunteers, there are some things that need more consistency than volunteering seems to have been able to sustain. So, several years ago, our board created a structure of small stipends. They are not enough to pay people for their time. They're more a way of saying thank you. Thank you for consistency. Thank you for coming and serving us even on the days you're tired, even on the days you had a tough week. Thank you for showing up for our babies and for our kids and for our teens. Thank you for paying our bills on time, month in and month out. Thank you for communicating what's going on in every week, making sure that when we show up to volunteer, we are coordinated to volunteers. Again, more thank you than it is dollars for hours. And here's what we found. When we say no to those small stipends, we end up losing consistency that keeps our community healthy. So, we are not behind by a huge amount. It's not a big number. If all the households were to divvy up the shortfall, it'll be about $30 per month per household. That is less than going out to dinner. Now, some could do that, and some cannot. Some can do more, others could do less. Also, we did have some pandemic not comebackers, but we also had some since pandemic comers. Human nature being what it is, though, new people take some time to begin to feel an ownership stake in a community. They walk in the door and they can't help but see because they made this happen. And it takes a while to realize that they is actually just us. And it takes an even longer time to start to feel a financial ownership stake in the community. So here's my ask today. Ongoing givers, would you take a look at your giving and ask yourself if you could adjust by some number or by some percentage? And not yet ongoing givers, if Common Thread has become a spiritual home for you, would you consider taking a financial ownership stake in the community? That's my ask. Here's my hope. My hope is that this part is easy. My hope is that we easily absorb the move and that we easily absorb renormalizing giving after the pandemic. My hope that this is easy is because I'm also looking at our long-term future. In the fall, if we have handled this shortfall easily, I would like to talk to you about Common Thread 5 years from now. Because 5 years from now, Doug will no longer be the primary leader of Common Thread. And I think Common Thread is a thing that we want to give to our children and to our grandchildren. I see a few things that I think will be essential for that transition to go well. Mostly, I see a more fully developed children and teen program. And it is no surprise what that's going to mean. We have gifted people. We're going to need to buy some people's time. That's the primary thing that's going to be an expense, is buying people's time. But I do believe the long-term well-being of our community will be determined by decisions that we make pretty soon, primarily about our children and our teens. However, we can't even talk about that yet. We can't talk about that until we absorb the move, until we normalize our post-pandemic finances. So that's about as straight as I know how to put it. You know now where we are. You know what happens or doesn't happen next. And in a moment, I'm going to open the floor for us to ask, what are you thinking? But first, let's do this. Let's dismiss the folks who are online. If you would, please put your hand on your heart. Now let's remember as we go that we are, every one of us carries the indwelling divine. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, they are in us because we are all, every one of us carries the divine breath. And if you would, extend your other hand to our city. And let's take what's in us and let's look for opportunities to give it away to the people that we live and work and go to school with, looking for opportunities to repair and heal our worlds. Amen. God bless you all. You are dismissed. By the way, if you want to donate, go to our website, donate at the top of the button.